Hello, Abigail here with the Tarotscopes for Pisces season, Pisces sun, moon, and rising. All right, my Pisces people, this season is something else, extra special. I do have a video that kind of covers the basic transits, but this one's a big one for you guys. So I want to really go into the astrology, how it kind of applies personally to Pisces heavy people. If you're not Pisces sun, moon, or rising, but you have a Pisces stellium, this is also for you. um, I do get a sense that a lot of these readings are going to, that you're the first one, so I don't know yet, that a lot of these readings are going to blend and merge together. So if you feel led to watch another signs reading that you don't have, go for it. Um, the beauty and the magic of Pisces is the blurring of lines, is the kind of unseen soaking in of things. Pisces permeates and soaks and drenches, and the beginning and the end of Pisces is not very clear. You all have some heavy hitter cards for the season. The astrology is heavy hitting. So I'm going to run through the astrology and then we'll get into the tarot. We got Mars retrograde still since December 6th as we enter into Pisces season on the 18th, but it stations direct on the 23rd. So just 5 days of Pisces season with the Mars retrograde. It is in a trine to your sign in Cancer. It's also in detriment in Cancer. So if this is a really complicated Mars retrograde, like the Mars retrograde in Gemini, which was the last one, um, roughly 2 years ago, completely different vibe. From what I can tell, way harder. Mars and Gemini is neither like bad nor good. It's very neutral. I also don't believe in bad or good in general. When it comes to signs, things happen and they get their own quality as they move through the energy. But this Mars retrograde has been a lot. If you have Cancer placements, God bless you. And if you don't, like me, although I do have oppositions in Capricorn, bless you too. But we're then going to be going through that pre-shadow period. So thankfully, we're going to have some forward motion, but we're still going through and regrouping as we move through those signs. And there's an eclipse in Aries season that is deeply wrapped up in this whole eclipse, in the whole Mars retrograde, in the eclipse cycles that went back to the beginning of 2023. There are a lot of kind of emerging and converging and colliding storylines in this Pisces season. Also, we have that new moon in Pisces that is eclipse free. This is kind of our opportunity to really manifest and bring in things into Pisces season, because once the eclipses start, we don't really have a whole lot of say. We have say over our personal actions, but we don't really get to influence things as much, because this is the universe taking over and really putting things back on track, really culling things in, really bringing things to a head that need to come to a head. I always say what I see in eclipse season for myself and others and clients is you start at like point A or C, whatever point you're at and whatever journey you're in. And then by the end of eclipse season, you're like point H or even point X. And you're like, I feel like we missed a bunch of steps. And it's a really disembodied feeling, which is why I love your oracle card. But we'll get into that. Then we end up with the Venus retrograde on the 1st of March. Very important. This starts at 10 degrees of Aries. And then I want to say goes to 24, 26 degrees. I'm getting Mercury messed up in there. But mid to late degrees of Pisces. And then, Mercury moves into Aries. We have that total lunar eclipse in Virgo. And this one is big time stuff. Not that not all eclipses aren't, but that we're like in almost an exact conjunction with the North Node. We have Neptune involved. The next eclipse we see, Neptune will be entering into Aries for the first time. So this is like beginnings and endings and past and present and future all converging into this one moment, which, while it's going to be difficult to digest, this is kind of peak intense Pisces energy. This is the type of energy that I find Pisces is very good with. I also find with Pisces, when it comes to maybe some spiritually difficult things, it just doesn't bother you. Obviously, this depends on other placements as well. If you're a Pisces with Virgo placements, you might struggle more with this than Pisces without Virgo placements. I find that Virgo is required to do work in spirituality in order to learn lessons, and Pisces is not. Does not mean that Virgo or Pisces is better or, worse at spiritual stuff. We just have different roles. I have heavy Virgo placements, if you can't tell. And every Pisces I've known is like water off a duck's back. Just you don't have the same issues and you don't need the same kinds of protections that I do. Hence me and my jewelry. And then we move into Mercury retrograde on the 15th and then into Aries season on the 20th. So there's a lot more going on in there. We have tons of, you know, south node, not south node, north node stuff happening. Obviously, south node is involved when we're in opposition. You know, Saturn is there this whole time, so the sun's going to have its Saturn conjunction. The sun's going to have that north node conjunction. All of these things are really building and compiling and intensifying, creating a really, really productive time, but also an incredibly kind of tricky, energetic dynamic. And I love the Oracle card that you all get because it is from The Lost Oracle by Fiona Horn, and it is Beacon of Fortitude, Ground and Connect. And I personally think that because of the unique energy of Pisces, you are going to find a way to ground and connect to this energy. And I think that is the key for you in this season. However, grounding and connection is different for people with Pisces placements than, say, an earth heavy person like me. So don't expect your grounding and connecting to look like everyone else's. Your grounding and connecting can be you existing more consciously in your dreams. Your grounding and connecting can be you appearing to others to be more disembodied, but that is oftentimes how Pisces embodies itself. There is a pentacle in here, so if you are struggling to ground and connect, I'm not saying ignore earth signs. I actually think you can learn a lot from an earth sign. Hang on to your earth humans if you need to, but don't expect the way that you ground and connect to be the way that everyone else grounds and connects, especially in this season. Also know that the gift of being able to disassociate and disconnect and kind of, you know, soak yourself into the energy can be a form of connection. You are kind of disconnecting from self and kind of blending into the collective. The trick here is that you do need to learn to maintain your form, maintain who you are. I think one of the dangerous things, I won't say dangerous, but one of the tricky things about being a Pisces is that you can lose yourself in your ability to morph and shift. Not like an air sign. You tend to like glom onto things, where air signs tend to kind of disperse. Um, your ability to mold into things, it's a water sign trick. Your ability to kind of fit into containers can get you stuck into containers that are not meant for you and can get you trapped into situations and into energy that is not healthy for you. So just be aware of that. But connect, connect, connect. Get in touch with your guides, amp up your spiritual practice. And it doesn't have to be in like a set way of doing things, it doesn't need to be on a schedule, but just even just walking outside and like putting your hand on a tree and just listening to its pulse, or taking a moment when you're drinking your tea to sit with the tea itself. I think this season, animism is not a bad thing to explore for you. This idea and belief that everything has a spirit and a soul of some kind, and that you can, communicate and talk to, like the fire here has a spirit, but also the candle that is, you know, carrying this fire, and the dish as well has a purpose and a soul. Now, we could argue because the dish is, not technically living nor has ever been. However, it is made of living things and it has a purpose and deserves honor and respect. So, if you have not delved into the idea of animism, I think this might be a way to ground and connect, to bring you closer to the universe and to your purpose. Um, I had an aura reading recently, and the message for me was radical trust. And I think that is also the message for you. Hold on to the things that you can hold on to and release the things that you can't. Ground into the things that you know are certain and you love and believe in, and release the things that you cannot be certain of. There is also an ability to ground in knowing that you don't know. There is an ability to find stability and understanding that you don't have control, and to release that need to try to negotiate and manipulate the circumstances. Manipulation's not always bad, it's just not in this situation. Starting off with your tarot, however, I love this for you. So you get the Empress. This is about that connection to self. This is that coming into your innate knowing and your nurture of self, knowing that you can be one with the universe and also feed as well. I think sometimes because of the way spirituality has been taught to us, and I will say this is my personal opinion, because a lot of spirituality that we end up getting is taught and cultivated and interpreted by men. There is a lot of desire for denial and for, fasting and I'm not saying that these things aren't legitimate, but escaping and leaving the world behind. Pretty much so I'm agender, but everyone I know who's born, you know, as a female or who is identified as a female or who has been in any position where they have had to help, we don't get to abandon the world. It's not our job to leave things. And I don't think it's men's or male presenting people's job to abandon the world, but it is a very male patriarchal concept that you leave the world to everyone else and then you go off and do your thing and, have a higher belief in existence and become oh so spiritual. We are called to nurture and to tend. And as Pisces, you are kind of the great cosmic nurturers. You not only tend to your energy, but you also tend to all the energy around you. And in this Empress moment, I think it's important for you to remember that you are not just giving, that you're receiving. That if you are a cosmic nurturer, if you're a cosmic carer, if you tend to the energy around you, you also deserve to be fed and tended to. And so, in this moment, in this Pisces season, I invite you to become this Empress figure, this figure of fertility and, you know, joy and abundance and higher understanding and also very patient. I don't like being patient, but we're going to talk about it. The Empress is patient. The Empress knows that time is important. The Empress cares. Oftentimes, in a lot of representation, the Empress is pregnant. You don't have to want to be pregnant. You don't have to have the ability to be pregnant. But it's this idea of creative nurturing and growing and bringing something from that moment of anima where life is sparked to the moment when a creative project or an idea or a belief gets legs and walks is a very spiritual and holistic idea. So, in this season, through these eclipses, this idea of nurturing and caring and tending, especially with Saturn and Pisces, tending to time and understanding time and growing time and taking everything you can out of the moment while also putting back into that soil for the future, you know, learning to live holistically rather than just for the moment. And the cards I pulled for y'all are just really beautiful. You got all major arcana. Next, we have the High Priestess. This is a spiritual journey, which we know. Anytime I see the High Priestess, I think Pisces. It's this deep, rich spiritual journey you're going on with the Empress. It's about power, it's about knowing. It's also about, because Pisces really is kind of everything and nothing, it's also about not knowing. It's also about that idea in Gnosticism that, you know, higher understanding at its pinnacle is knowing that you don't know anything, which opens you up to then knowing everything, but also not knowing anything. Which you're like, well, that isn't real. Well, it doesn't matter. That's kind of how Gnostics are, at least from my experience. So take this idea of gnosis, of being open to all of these things, of caring for things. I also love the fact that this is a door and a portal. This is also a reminder not to let everything in, to protect your energy. I find that most Pisces don't have an issue with energetic draining as much as some people. However, just because you're not drained by someone being a vampire doesn't mean that they get to drink your blood. Yeah. Like maybe it doesn't really seem to affect you, but maybe they don't deserve it and maybe they shouldn't be there. Or maybe there's someone who's more deserving of your energy that they're taking from. And so you're not being able to invest in someone who you really could benefit and enjoy investing in while there's someone over here just like taking all the cream off the top. Um, this definitely goes back to that grounding, to really centering whatever spiritual practice you're currently in or on, allowing yourself that, ability to flex and stretch and enjoy your spiritual practice. Like I said, doesn't have to be set. You don't need to have strict rules, but to be engaging in energy daily, to be dancing and moving and sitting with, like I mentioned, with animism, sitting with your objects and connecting with nature and the stars. And, maybe this is also the time to get some kind of reading, finding kind of a person to help you portal through things could be useful. So keep that in mind. But this is about deepening your spiritual life and growth. I think that full moon eclipse in Virgo is going to be really helpful because it's in that opposing sign. It's going to open up some new perspectives, some new understanding. So keep an eye out for that. I don't know if I gave the date for that one, but it is on the 14th. It's right before that Mercury station retrograde. Then we have the Fool. This is kind of, to me, especially with this eternity symbol with the snake eating its own tail, this is kind of the beginning of everything and the end of everything all at the same time. This is a really climactic moment for you. It's also, while I think it's going to feel like an end, it's also going to feel really richly like a beginning. And also a reminder that life and time and the universe and energy is perpetual. This is very big and also very small. So don't let it get you. Don't let it overwhelm you. Like, if you need to feel overwhelmed, but don't let it stop you from expanding, from moving, from growing, from progressing into this full moment. Also, a reminder that later this year, we do have Uranus entering into Gemini. This is like the ultimate full moment. Um, and also, I love here that we have the sun, in tandem with this Fool. It's about you learning more about yourself, and not to create a new self, but to become more acquainted with all of the nooks and crannies of who you are, which I think really ties back to that Empress and that High Priestess. This is an exploration of the self, of the soul. I do think for some of you, past life work might be important, or at least kind of looking into past life work and past life belief. Some of you may need to do karmic remediation or past life rectification, basically the same thing. There's tons of different methods, but keep your mind's eye open, keep your spiritual eye open to all the new and beautiful things that are coming in for you. And then last but not least, we do have judgment. I don't think this is a surprise with all the major arcana. We are having a last Trump moment. And by Trump, I mean trumpet. It's an old fashioned Christian term. The last trumpet, from the, where this card originated from the white throne judgment, because there are multiple judgments, depending on what you believe in Christianity. I'm not a Christian anymore. I was indoctrinated into it. Anyways, that's a fun little story for a different time. But this is a moment where things are going to be called to heal, where a lot of hopes and dreams are going to be put into question. Doesn't mean they're bad, doesn't mean they're wrong, but the universe is going to be asking you, do you want this one? Do you want this one? Is this what you really want? And you're going to need to be clear about it. And you are going to have to make hard decisions, and to choose what you truly want. And it goes back to all of these cards with the sun, like you becoming your truest, fullest self. It comes back to the Empress, you nurturing and caring and stepping into your power. It comes back to the High Priestess, this connection with spirituality and your purpose and plan that you may never know, but will constantly be seeking. And then we have the Fool, which makes us make a choice by default. Will we be brave enough to move ahead? And then we have Judgment, where all of the things that may be holding us back or pushing us forward are going to be called up, and we're going to have to make choices. So I know this can feel overwhelming, but I do think this is a really beautiful, expansive time for you. I think important to note, rest a lot, especially in the eclipses. There's not a whole lot you can do. Whatever spiritual practice you have, whatever stuff you've already set in place, that's what we're working with, and that's fine. You can prep as much as you want up into that new moon in Pisces, but don't feel pressured to do too much battening down the hatches. Work through what you can work through and then trust the universe will take care of the rest. Anyways, my love, this is the end of your Tarotscope slash reading for this season. I love you all. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments. If you would subscribe, I would deeply appreciate it. And I will see you in a different space and time. Blessed Pisces season.